Did you do your red light therapy today?
I did.
What's your routine with that? Like, how do you typically break that down personally?
So the first thing I do is there's a gentleman named Dr. Nathan Bryan,
Hmm.
who is one of the world's leading experts on nitric oxide.
I'm
And
actually speaking with him on a conference this weekend. We're leaving for it. I had him on my podcast about nitric oxide, and then we're going to be at the same conference this
uh,
weekend.
awesome. So we're great friends. So what I do is I take one or two of his nitric oxide tablets about a half hour before I'm going to do an LED bed treatment. And what that does is, like, I'm basically putting nitric oxide in my body, right? And anybody that's in their 50s to 60s, any nitric oxide that they produce or take, like, as a supplement, um, a higher and higher percentage of what you produce or eat in the way of nitric oxide becomes trapped in the mitochondria of the cell and isn't actually available for the body to utilize. And what our bed does is actually releases that trapped nitric oxide and makes it available. So I'll take some of his nitric oxide tablets about a half hour prior to doing a treatment. In the 50 to 60 years old, approximately 80% of what we produce or make, it actually ends up being trapped. It just keeps getting a higher percentage as you age,
Hmm.
as to how much gets trapped and how much is still utilized. And so then I'll do a bed treatment, and it'll release all that, which massages all the walls of your arteries and makes them open up and gets blood flow going. And then when I get off my LED bed treatment, I go into my hyperbaric chamber, and now we cram as much pure oxygen into my body as we can, now that we've got all the arteries going and the blood flow going and that sort of thing. And you actually can really enhance the benefits of a hyperbaric chamber by doing a full body red light therapy treatment prior to that.
And you're doing that daily?
No, not daily. I will do that 3-4 days a week, mostly for the last 13 years. And uh, and then I'll knock off the hyperbaric chamber after doing it for a couple months. I'll knock it off for a month, maybe even 2 months, and then I'll do it again for 2-3 months. And but always taking a break on that, and which is what is recommended to do. The bed, you could do it every day at the LED bed. Like, we have, celebrity level pro athletes that I'll tell you some stories about later, that they're on the bed. If they've got an injury, they'll do 3 to 4 hours a day on the LED bed, actually.
Wow. How long are you doing on the bed just proactively, and how long are you staying in the hyperbaric oxygen?
Doing 40-minute treatment on the LED bed, 20 minutes on each side. And we'll tell you when we get into that about why doesn't have a top. It's a specific technical reason. And then an hour and a half in the hyperbaric chamber. But in the
Gotcha.
hyperbaric chamber, I can take my computer, I can take my phone, and there's the chamber itself is not filled with 100% oxygen. It's really about 51 or 52 or 3%. So it's safe to have an electronic instrument in there. Um, the mask that you breathe out of, that is 96 to 100% oxygen, and would not be good to have around electrical instrument that might spark or something.
Right, makes total sense. As far as the nitric oxide is concerned, since you and him are good friends, do you use his toothpaste? Does he come out with that yet officially?
I don't know. I just heard about it from my wife, because she's really good friends with his business partner, um, and um, and so I'm not using it yet, but only because I haven't seen him in a month or something like that. And yeah, I'll see him next month in June for sure.
Nice. I've been thinking, like, after I talk with him, I'm like, I gotta get some of this toothpaste. 'Cause I'm trying to always find the right toothpaste, not using the fluoride stuff.
Yeah.
And I know he was working on it, so I'm gonna have to see if he's got that out and about yet.
No, I definitely I have a toothpaste that we found that it doesn't have fluoride in it, and I don't use mouthwash. I scrape my tongue instead, and um, no problems.
Nice. What do you do about like natural sunlight? Like when it comes to circadian rhythm, natural sunlights, how do you kind of weave in getting that in addition to what you're getting through the red light therapy? Like how much of an emphasis do you put on the natural light?
So I really like it a lot. And my body feels really good when I get some. When I get some, like I'll go out. We have um uh, kind of a nook in an outside nook patio that's surrounded by three walls of my house and a fence on the other side, and I'll go out there and lay on the deck between 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning for maybe anywhere from 5 to 10, sometimes 15, but usually 10 minutes, something like that. And I will get some of those good rays that are actually healthy for you. Um, but other than that, I mean, I'm not like laying in the sun in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I did
I
just get
assume
back from St. Bart's, so I might have a little color in my face that I don't normally have. But
well, you're in California too, so you're always getting some sunlight anyways. You're just kind of out in it by nature.
yeah,
Um what so I'm assuming you probably you don't use any suntan lotion or anything, right? Like you're avoiding that?
yeah, no, no.
Okay, I assumed as much, but what got you into the light therapy in the first place, man? Like a lot of people, what's fascinated me within the biohacking realm as of late is like so many people are doing these really fancy technologically advanced things. Um, and it oftentimes just brings us back to what we were doing as a species before any of this became cool in the first place. But red light's kind of unique and that it does penetrate deeper. It's got some very interesting components beyond just what you're getting from sunlight. So, what fascinated you? What was the catalyst for you getting into light therapy at the onset? What was the origin story?
So, uh, we've got a good hour or a little more, right, to talk.
Yeah, lay it on me, man. What you got?
So you know what detailing a car is?
Hmm.
So you know because of me. Because I opened the first detail shop in the world in 1972. And then we franchised, and I sold 155 franchises across the US in the mid 80s. And we sold out in 2001. And I say we because I met my wife when she was 16, and we've been together ever since. And we've worked together. So we've literally been together 24 hours a day almost since we met. And,
Hmm.
uh, we sold our detailing business 3 days after 9/11, and
Okay.
a unique gentleman who owned the largest car wash chain on the West Coast bought it, and business stopped for weeks after 9/11. Nobody did business, right? We didn't think he was going to close because it was 3 days after it happened, and we closed escrow because he said the sun is shining, and if you're a car wash guy, that those are good days. So he goes, if it would have been raining or cloudy, I wouldn't have closed.
Hmm.
So we sold the business, and then we built custom homes for about 8 years, big custom homes here in the Newport, Tustin area of Orange County, and and then we were kind of winding that down and were interested to find something new, but weren't really looking. And a girlfriend of my wife's told her that she had been using this handheld red light, and it made her wrinkles get better. And and she goes, I could get you one if you want one. I know the inventor. And so she got her one, and my wife starts using it. And she starts noticing after a couple of weeks that she's being less critical of herself when she looks in the mirror in the morning. And I'm like, this is a happy day. When the wife starts out the day happy, this is good for the husband, right? and
Hmm.
so she keeps going. And after about 2 months, she sees the start of not complete eradication or anything, but the start of reduction of some of her wrinkles. And she was tightening up here on the jowl line, was tightening up. And so she was so kind of happy about that whole thing that she wrote a testimonial and sent before and after pictures into the company. The company at that time was two inventors working out of their garage, literally. We didn't know that at the time, but that's what it was. And and thanked them for the great product, basically. And they contacted her and said, you're nice looking and you're the right age. Would you be our spokesperson? And she's like, I'm not doing anything right now. Sure, like whatever, and so they set up a day to come over and video her, and because those were the days when this is like almost 20 years ago, when you sent a CD out with your device so that people could
Uh-huh.
watch the CD and see how to use it, right? And
Uh-huh.
and anyway, so they set up this appointment to come over our house and video her in our living room. And we had this huge office off the living room, and I was just in the office working, and the inventor, one of the two inventors, came in to the office. He was the main guy, and he's telling me about the company and whatnot, and I'm like realizing that he's not only out of business, but just doesn't actually realize it yet. But he's also he's also starting to take down financially every friend and family member around him, but not as, this was not a guy that had a bad bone in his body. He just was a dreamer. He was an inventor, and he really, when he told somebody, I just need to use your credit card for 20 grand for 2 weeks, I got the money coming in. Like, he really believed that, but it never came in. And this happened to one family member after another. So I I laid it out for him on paper. Excuse me. And I said, I would consider buying the company from you, but part of the money that I pay you has to go back to pay all these people back first. And he agreed to that. And so we made a deal, and I did my due diligence for about 6 months, and then we closed escrow. And he just had one handheld light that was for he was selling it as an anti-aging light at the time. And since then we developed better ones. But and that's kind of how it started, how we got into the business. And I just kind of poured myself into research for 3 years solid, and learning about the FDA, and how to get FDA clearance. FDA clearance is the same exact thing as FDA approval, except that they use the word approved for drugs and they use the word cleared for devices. And it's the same safety and efficacy testing. And if somebody says says on their website that they're FDA registered, run, because that means nothing. That means they basically sent a letter to the FDA saying, we're going to sell this product on the market now. We're not going to make wild claims. So the FDA hasn't seen it. There's no safety testing. There's no efficacy testing, nothing. When
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing, or it says FDA registered, that's a big red flag. Um, and So anyway, we started developing more handhelds. We improved the handheld that we had for LightStim for wrinkles. We
Had you
started
used it at all, like, yourself, or at this point, is it mostly just, like, you're going off of what your wife's reporting to you as how efficacious it is? Like, have you been testing it at this point?
right. Oh yeah, no, yeah. I started using it immediately. Actually, I used it on half my face. And we
Okay.
started going to trade shows, and by 10, if you're doing it daily for 10, 12 weeks, you're getting some good change that is visible. And I actually did it on the left side of my face, which was worse here in the United States because we drive on the left-hand side of the car. Sunlight comes in from that side, and that's just like every derm knows that, every beautician knows that. Like left side of the face is always worse usually than the right side. And so I did the left side of my face, and we started going to trade shows, and and the estheticians, I tell them, I go, look at me, like I look at this side of my face, like, and they go, oh, you got fillers or something. And they'd start feeling, they go, no, you don't have any fillers. Like what? And I'm like, no, it actually does really work. And simultaneously while this is going on, I'm learning about the FDA, and I find out like we're going to need to do clinical studies, and we're going to have doctors do them, and we started lining that kind of stuff up. And the estheticians started to tell us that they wanted a big panel for the face, something that curved around the face or had adjustable uh, uh, pieces that could adjust to get tight close by the face to use with all of the different types of facials that they offered. And the only thing on the market was a company that had a 30, well, it was between 25 and $30,000 unit. And so we looked at it and we're like, there's no way that this should cost that kind of money. And so using the same engineering that we had bought the rights to uh, from the inventors, we developed a panel for the face, and we were able to sell it for about $4,000. And within 2 years, the companies that were selling the $20,000 to $30,000 panels literally were out of business or left the country. And
Mhm.
we kind of owned the space. And and I mean, since then, I mean, just to give you a little high level of where LightStim's at, like as a brand, we are the largest manufacturer in the world of LED medical devices. And we sell to we've sold to, I think we're in about 60,000 offices now, whether it be a spa, a med spa, a doctor's office, or a fitness center, massage center, that sort of thing. And we have over 1 million consumers that use our handheld devices. And uh, we're just now getting bigger into the retail space where we're going to have a lot of new products come out over the next year, and we're going to concentrate on that because we probably own 80% of the professional market. Um,
Mhm.
but the story about the bed is really interesting. If you don't mind me just keep rolling with this thing.
Yeah, I have one quick question though,
Yeah,
before we dive into that. So with regards to like the FDA requirements, that's all because it's marketed as a medical device with medical claims? Like if that were
it's
not the
not
case,
that
it
it's
would
marketed as it, it's that LED, no matter what claims you're making or anything, it is considered a class 2 medical device. And 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 so if and so a lot of rules apply to it. Um and and like like you can't put LED red lights in a sauna. And the reason you can't put red light in a sauna is that's a dual modality. And the FDA is really down on dual modalities because I mean, unless it's done properly, like there's no telling, like if the FDA didn't have regulations like that you just can't do two modalities in one device, and people started doing them. I mean, LED is it's like a zero risk device, but there's other devices that aren't zero risk. And what if you put it with something else and you did a clinical study on it and you start seeing bad things happen? And
Mhm.
because that could happen, you don't know because there's no testing done with it. And it'd be like, putting sauna with cryo or something, people might start having heart attacks or something if you did it in the wrong order. You did like if it was one device. I'm saying. So
Mhm.
dual modalities are looked at as something that has to be closely regulated and looked at by the FDA. And if you put a device on the market with a dual modality without FDA clearance, it's basically illegal. It's basically illegal.
Doesn't stop people from doing it though, right?
No, no, it doesn't. But buyer beware.
Yeah. I didn't mean to derail you from the
No.
discussion of the bed, so by all means, rock and roll with that.
So anyway, we're rolling along for a number of years, and the business is just booming and it's doing great. And about 15 years ago, um, our son at the time was 21. He's now 36. Um, started having a lot of sore throats because he had never gotten his tonsils out. And so we set up an appointment for him to go to the hospital, have his tonsils taken out. And he's in recovery and everything's great. And then about 2 hours later, everything wasn't great. Like all his vital signs started heading south. His blood pressure was 215 over 165. He starts hemorrhaging. They throw him back into surgery, which is a whole unbelievable thing. If you ever have to go, like you ever come out of surgery and you got to go right back in, they have to give you all these drugs to get the drugs out of your body that they gave you to put you to sleep before they could give you new drugs to put you to sleep again. I mean, you're like,
Mhm.
you're like the worst kind of drug sponge ever if you've got to go right back into surgery or something. And anyway, they kept him for 4 days. They gave him back to us, and they said, "Your son has dangerously high blood pressure. Like he could have a stroke at any moment. He could die. You need to do something right away." And my wife and I are normally alternative minded when it comes to medicine, at least first anyway, and see if that can work without having to do drugs and stuff. And so, and because of all of our contacts throughout the whole US, I mean, we know everybody, and we took them to the best anti-aging doctors, to integrative medicine doctors, to naturopaths, to Chinese medicine, and nobody could find anything wrong with him, and nothing dropped his blood pressure. I mean, we actually first went to regular medicine and put him on the drugs, which are terrible. I mean, one of the side effects is impotency. So we put
Mhm.
our 21-year-old son, on drugs that could make him impotent. I mean, if he had continued to take them. But after a month and his blood pressure only went down 3 points, we're like, okay, no, we're not doing this. And that's when we started to go to all the other doctors that we knew, and different therapies. And so nothing worked. So my wife and I were pretty distraught. We're very close with this son. Like he works with us, and now he's got kids, and they come over every single week to have Sunday dinner with us, and like we're really tight. And so, my wife, we were like in apathy, like we didn't know what to do. And it was a Saturday, and he and I were sitting in manufacturing, just talking. We weren't open on the weekend, and I all of a sudden, like a light bulb went on, and I went, Chase, you pass out every day around 2 o'clock. Like, and this kid is like so not lazy. Like this is the hardest working kid ever. I go and maybe that's an indication that for some reason your cells aren't producing enough ATP, which for your listeners, that stands for adrenosine triphosphate, which is the gasoline that fuels your cells. And I said, maybe for some reason you're not producing enough ATP. And maybe that's why none of these protocols work that from any of these doctors, because the cells don't have enough energy to carry out, the task that would be normally at hand. And maybe we should try to build some full body something. I don't even know what to call it. And we'll use wavelengths that we know the mitochondria absorbs and converts to ATP. And maybe we can, fill the tank of every cell in your body, and maybe something will start working then. And because this was a real Hail Mary, we had exhausted everything that we could have done for him, actually. And
Mhm.
so the bed took 6 years to actually perfect and get FDA cleared. But in 60 days, he and an engineer and a welder, and I say a welder because they used quarter-inch thick plate, like about 9 inches tall and like 6 by 8 long, to make like what looked like, and we powder coated it white because everything we have is white. The way we do is white. It looked like a white coffin and it has a straight
Mhm.
piece of glass on it. So imagine laying naked on a straight piece of glass. This is not a comfortable thing to do. Like you find bones that you didn't know you had, laying on glass, right? And he lays on this thing 3 days a week. 2 months later, his blood pressure is 130/80, and we're like,
Mhm.
"Whoa, maybe this could be a commercial product." And I'd seen them on the internet before, but you know, like, let's go talk to the FDA. So I actually, I had befriended the assistant director of the FDA, and he actually just retired recently after being there about 30 years or something. And 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 I befriended him because we were like the only company that wasn't putting products on the market without taking them through the FDA first, doing clinical studies, doing all the testing for EMF and all those different kinds of things. And and I went and saw him, and I said, "Neil, we want to build a full body LED bed, and I don't want to spend millions of dollars and years developing something, then bring it to you and for you to laugh and go, oh, nope, should have talked to me first, like you completely missed the mark, Steve." And I said, "So I kind of need a heads up from you engineering on, directions to head in or directions to stay away from, that sort of thing." And he goes, "Steve, I'm going to do you a big favor." He goes, "Don't bother developing an LED bed." He goes, "Don't waste your money. Don't waste your time because you're never going to get it approved because they don't work." And I went, "What do you mean they don't work?" And he goes, "They're all just lighting up the skin." He goes, "This is an aesthetic device. This is a wellness device. In order to be a wellness device, you've got to get good penetration of that light so that you're affecting a large number of cells that in a positive way, and then could get a measurable result." And
Mhm.
and and to further explain what he was thinking about, if you're treating um, a 1 inch square area of the skin and the surface of the skin, you're treating 19 million cells that whose sole function is the skin. Okay, that's their sole function. If you could go down in that 1 inch square about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, now you're treating 400 to 600 million cells that have a whole variety of jobs in the body. Like, these are the guys you want to get in good shape. This is what wellness is all about. And and so I don't understand. Like, what's the problem with getting penetration? And 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 that started a 6 year conversation with him, and back and forth, back and forth. And we basically learned three things. The first thing we learned was that if you're further away than 3/4 of an inch, there's no chance of you getting penetration. You could light up the skin. Matter of fact, devices that we make for the face for estheticians, we tell them to use that somewhere between 1 and 4 inches from the skin because you're just treating the skin.
Mhm.
And but but um, LED loses its power exponentially as you leave the tip of the bulb. So excuse me. So it just loses its intensity too fast, and a 3/4 of an inch is about it for you to get the penetration that we're trying to get. And and that was the only reason we built a one-sided bed. that you flip on halfway through the treatment, and we made it so that you're a 1/4 inch off the tip of the bulb, actually. And
Gotcha, okay.
and so our competitors will go, well, we could do the treatment in half the time. Well, after you hear the rest of the story, they can't do the treatment in half the time, um and uh and the FDA found our device to be so effective that they actually approved it for as little as 5 minutes, which nobody knows. You might be one of the first guys I'm telling that, but that's in our approval. It's actually, we could treat for as little as 5 minutes, and the FDA would consider we were actually getting a result. And and so so that was why we built a one-sided bed that you flip on halfway through, and the bed beeps 3 times when it's halfway through the treatment, and it shuts off, and that's your clue to wake up, because most people fall asleep. And this is the warmth, the gentle warmth that just puts everybody to sleep on it. And turn over, and you've got a towel over you that's actually functional, and it isn't for privacy because you are naked, but it's to help trap heat, because heat, you're going to learn about shortly, is a really important thing. And and so then so then the next thing that we knew, and during the 6 years, we're building all these prototypes and testing them and that sort of thing, and we're not going to market. Nobody even knows this is occurring. This is a highly secret project within our company, and that my son is running with our engineers and our development guys. And so so we knew that we had to use some LEDs that were emitting light about 15 to 45 degrees, or maybe 50 degrees wide at the widest angle. And the reason we knew that was that when you get a wider angle being emitted from the LED bulb itself, it just loses its power so quickly and its intensity so quickly that it has no ability to penetrate. So we start making some models with these LEDs that are emitting light like this, except we're not getting any penetration. And what happened was when this light hit the acrylic that divides your body from actually laying on the LEDs, you got to have something to lay on. It was going like this and dispersing out to 180 degrees and getting zero penetration. It didn't matter we were a 1/4 inch off the tip of the bulb, didn't matter we had the right angle of light. The acrylic was dispersing the light. And
Mhm.
so my son goes out and pits the 4 biggest manufacturers of acrylics against one another, and to see who could come up with an acrylic for us that actually let the light through without dispersing it. It took them 2 years, and one of them finally did come up with an acrylic that actually let that happen. So we now had overcome 2 of the 3 barriers in the first 3 years of the 6 years of working with the FDA on this development project. And um, and the third and last thing was that our barrier that we had to overcome is we had to pass the FDA's test for efficacy. And this is a really important part of this story to get, because I'm gonna go over some legal stuff after this that it's all keys around this. So the FDA's test for efficacy in this category, and this is, and the category that LED beds are in is called the ILY category. It means nothing. It's just, that's the FDA's designation for it. But it's for pain, and it's for increased blood circulation. Basically, that's the benefits that the FDA will allow without further testing and further clinical studies. And
Mhm.
and so, so in the past, there were no full body devices trying to get through that test. There were like handhelds, like that big around, that sort of thing. You just put it here on your shoulder, you leave it there for as long as it takes till you hit the certain temperature band. So over the last 40, 45 years, the FDA has determined that with LED and wellness, in a certain temperature band, that's where benefits really happen. And do they happen below that and above that? Yes, but not like they're happening in this band. And in this band, they're happening on a wholesale level. Like huge benefits are happening if you're in this band. So,
Mhm.
so with a handheld, you could just hold it wherever on your body till you hit that temperature, and then keep it at that temperature during the treatment. You might have to back off a little if it got too hot or that sort of thing, but you could pass the test. But full body is a whole nother story. When you lay your naked body on a sheet or a layer of LEDs, what is going to happen? And it doesn't matter if it's got a top or not, except the top's probably too far away to even come into the picture, or a panel hanging on a wall, too far away to come into the picture. When you lay your body on a layer of undifferentiated LEDs, basically, what's going to happen is your torso is going to absorb the heat best and hold on to the heat, and it might hit that temperature. And it's not that that temperature is a really high temperature, it's just that it's hard for the skin temperature to hit that exact temperature. And so your best chance is that you might get the torso into that temperature band. But I can guarantee you there's no way the arms and legs are going into that temperature band, because they don't have the mass and they're dissipating heat as fast as you're feeding it to them. And so, and according to Google, the arms and legs are between 58 and 68% of your total body mass. So, so if you're even getting the torso into that, it's way less than half of the body of your body that's even getting the treatment, and you're thinking you're getting a full body treatment, right? And
Mhm.
and um and uh so this took us 3 years to solve, and my son came up with this idea. And if you're on our website, you could see it on any picture of our LED bed. Instead of it being a sheet of LEDs, he divided it up into these modules that were about 6 or 7 inches wide and about 9 or 10 inches long. So 30 separate modules of LEDs. They're actually in like little plastic buckets, and the LED board is on top of that, and then the acrylic goes on top of that. And and in the center of each one of these 30 modules is a special little sensor that we developed. And all this stuff, by the way, is made in our factory in Orange County, California, actually the city of Irvine. And we buy most of our parts to manufacture these products within about 2 or 3 blocks from us, because Irvine is actually the hub for the United States for medical devices. So there's a whole lot of vendors selling us components and things like that, like right close by us.
Mhm.
And anyway, so we designed these sensors that my son came up with this idea for. And what happens on our bed when you lay on it is literally in a millisecond, because these sensors run on a millisecond by millisecond basis, constantly checking. And each each sensor has has um, has figured out what the temperature of that one module has to be for the body part that's touching it, in order to bring that body part up to that range, and then hold it throughout the treatment time by continually checking it on a millisecond by millisecond basis. And when you turn over, or when you move your leg or put your arms out or anything like that, it immediately adjusts everything. And we patented that. And our patent attorney was actually the ex like lead judge for the patent office for 20 years. So he did a
Nice.
really good job of patenting it. And so so we released the bed in October of 2016. And and uh in in so so over the next 3 years, this same assistant director of the FDA, Neil, Neil started to notice that so many devices were coming over from China specifically, and they were trying to get FDA clearance, which is great, right? That's a plus point that they were doing that. And but all of his reviewers at the FDA that review these files and go back and make them do more testing and that sort of thing were so busy with all this LED stuff, which is zero risk. Like, and I mean, people don't get maimed or hurt by LEDs. There were actual people dying in clinical studies and stuff like that that may have been prevented had there been more available reviewers to work on that stuff. So he came up with this idea to do
Wait, how were they dying in the studies?
different, not LED studies, different things
Oh, just
related.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
gotcha,
It
gotcha.
might be a heart device. He's the device division. Might be a heart device or something that was having a problem, and the manufacturer wasn't reporting it. And had there been
Gotcha, okay.
a reviewer on the case, so so he comes up with this idea to do an exemption specifically for this ILY category of LED. And and so he and his team developed this regulation called the exemption, and it either hit the market in December of 19 or January of 20. And when it hit the market, we didn't pay any attention to it because we were committed to not utilizing an exemption. We wanted to go through the FDA for everything. We're, I mean, mostly because we do own the lion's share of the professional market, and these guys are demanding, they're discerning, they're hard to please. They want their products to be like really bulletproof. And
And, like, the bed that you had made, I mean, the primary use case for that was in a medical setting?
no,
Or is it a medical setting?
no, but there's a lot of doctors that we sell to. There's a lot of med spas that have a doctor associated with it, but it's really being run by nurses and estheticians,
Mhm.
and then just spas, and then it hadn't expanded too much at that point from there, like where we are now. I'll tell you in a little bit about franchises, but anyway, so we didn't even read it. Well, I believe because I can't believe that everybody's a criminal. So I got to believe that nobody else read it either. And and because we just thought, shit, you could just put these products on the market now, like that's and we made sure to continue to tell people in our marketing that we weren't doing that. We're taking everything through the FDA. We're doing and uh so in um April of 23, the Federal Trade Commission puts out this letter, this warning letter to the health and wellness industry. And I could send you these documents um, uh, after the show. Um, and and it's a warning letter to the health and wellness industry. And paraphrasing it, basically they're saying you guys are duping the public with unsubstantiated claims, and we're coming after you. And we're not only coming after you, we've already targeted, investigated, and penalized 670 companies. And it says this in that warning letter. And I don't know how many since then, but they are on the warpath, and I'm glad for it because the public's going to get better products because of it. And then so chronologically, that was the next thing that happened. Then about a year to a year and 3 months ago, 15 months, something like that, one of the largest law firms in the US, King and Spalding, they're headquartered in DC. They have over 1,300 attorneys, and they have a 25-year working relationship with the FDA and the FTC. They decide to read this regulation and break it down. And they put out a white paper or an opinion letter on it. And it basically it 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 delves into each paragraph of the regulation, the exemption, and
Mhm.
explains what it says. Like one thing is like says it says that the FDA says, like, you don't have to submit paperwork to us. So, as part of the exemption. So, you have to have an FDA consultant or have to have had one in the past to know what the definition of submit means. When the FDA uses the word like submit, when they say you don't have to submit, that means you have to do. So you've got to do all the tests that we had to do. You have to pass them. You don't have to turn that paperwork in. You put that paperwork in a folder and you put it away so that when the FDA or FTC, and they do this unannounced, they come in, and the FDA actually has a gun on their hip, actually, and investigates you. You could go, look, I'm 100% legal. Here's my file. We did every single test. We passed them all. Here it is. So that's one thing that's in there. The other thing that it says in there that they bring to light is that it says to be exempt, to help to qualify for exempt, you have to not make any claims other than what somebody that actually got FDA clearance, but basically LightStim, is making. And everybody could fix that overnight. It's on their websites. It's just to change the words, right? No problem. But the one other thing, and I'll tell you about that. It says is that it says you have to have the same scientific technology as the company that got FDA clearance. Now, the reason the FDA put that in there is they're not seeing the devices, they're not looking at them, they're not seeing the tests or anything. But if you're attesting to the fact that you've got the same technology as somebody that got FDA cleared, then your device is FDA, then it's safe and it's effective. And so they can rest their minds that they put this exemption out because of that. And that's why they put that in there. Well, nobody has our patented technology, and then we didn't license it to anybody. No, it's impossible to even engineer around it. And so basically this letter, it basically says all these devices, these panels that hang on walls, the tanning beds that have been converted, or any kind of a pod or saunas, they're all actually illegally in the marketplace. And and because they're not complying with the exemption. And and uh, uh, so when that happened about 15 months ago, it got pretty widely distributed, and we started getting calls from franchises, from large franchises, gyms, massage, facial, med spa. And in the last year, we've signed 31 contracts with huge franchise. I mean, up to as many as 5,400 locations in one of the franchises. And we have about 25 more that we're talking to or in some form of negotiations with, because most of them are billion-dollar companies. If you've got 500 locations or more, the main franchisor is probably worth close to $1 billion or more. And they can't mess around with the law. They've got to, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their franchisees and to the franchisees' clients, and rightly so, because what else happened consequently with this letter coming out is the class action lawsuit lawyers saw this, and they went, wow, that's low hanging fruit. We can go after those guys, and we have the government behind us. And so right now on social media, they are running ads that say, if you bought this panel, call us. We may be able to get your money back and then some, kind of thing. Or masks. Like, from what we can see, we've been testing masks for over 2 years. It took us 2 full years to identify all the barriers in a mask, but we from what we can see, none of them are working, and none of them have enough LEDs in them. Like you and some that purport to have 300 LEDs. Well, if you buy one of those masks and count them, you'll see that they have 100, not 300. And they have 100 that are putting out 3 different colors that you can switch it between, like a Christmas light, not like
Mhm.
a medical grade LED. and and so people aren't getting results, and these class action lawsuit firms have identified that, and in particular the panels. I haven't seen them start to go after the tanning beds yet that are retrofitted, but they will, because there's money to be had there. um
The panels are really popular, man. I mean, like, red light in general is super popular right now, especially in, like, the biohacking space that I'm steeped in, and, I mean, there's, like, a new brand coming out every other week, it seems, but, like, not to throw any names out there, but I would assume, like, Juve is probably, like, the prominent panel light, I'm assuming, right?
I don't know. I never talk about any specific
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
but but
But those aren't really efficacious is what you're saying, like, the technology isn't in pretty much any of these
well,
alternatives to actually
I,
provide benefit.
I'm saying that we worked with the FDA for 6 years. If you're further away than 3/4 of an inch and not naked, you got to be naked, not in your gym clothes, working out 1 to 2 feet away from a panel, which is what most of the advertising that we see different panel companies use. Um, Not that. all, all of them have an acrylic that's dispersing light. I know that for a fact, because we spent 2 years trying to develop something that had never been developed before, that let the light through, and none of them have the capability of bringing the different parts of the body that have different body mass
To the
up
right
to that
temperature.
temperature where the FDA has determined that benefits really are happening in that band. And and there have been some franchises in past that have adopted those, and that are sitting on, like, having hundreds of franchisees who bought those things. And that's all it would take, is for one of these attorneys to see. The other thing that the attorneys are looking for is they're looking for um, clients that think that they were getting benefits when they actually weren't. And whereas the masks one, they're looking for ones that where they definitely knew that it wasn't working, because their wrinkles weren't getting less. But there's the educating people to let them know, like, nothing's happening here. Like, you're not getting any penetration. You might get warm enough to get a little increased blood circulation, which is a really good thing to do, but it's like nothing compared to what a bed should be delivering.
Yeah.
The benefits that everybody knows red light delivers, like increased ATP, release of serotonin and dopamine, release of nitric oxide, all those types of things. Excuse me.
Is there like, because like, people probably aren't testing at home for, you know, increase in ATP or released nitric oxide, so, like, what is a good, litmus test for people at home that have been duped and gotten, like, some light from China, that they've been playing around with and telling all their friends about? Like, how do they confidently say, "Yeah, this is just junk, I need to trade it in for the real
They
deal"?
could buy saliva test strips from Dr. Nathan Bryan. He has a patent on them, and I wouldn't buy anybody else's. But yeah, we tested thousands of people at trade shows over the years, and every single time, like, we increased their nitric oxide, available nitric oxide, according to the test strips.
Yeah.
um,
That's super fast. I honestly have not played around too much with the red light because I've not I don't know, man. I've not had a device that I've felt to be, like, of legitimate significance and quality that I could confidently say it would make a difference. Now, to that point, I haven't consistently used any device long enough to, definitively know if it made a benefit or not. But, like, I'm assuming, like, your legit 6-year test with the FDA bed is probably not something you could just walk into Walmart and buy or something off of Amazon, right? Like, that's something you gotta probably special order, I would
the
assume, right?
bed?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just it's a lot of money. We have a consumer version called the core bed that is 6 inches narrower than the pro bed. It's $40,000, or the pro bed is $55,000. Um, um, uh, but um, but for those that can't afford it, um, large franchises that are delivering the service for a really, really cheap price will all have the bed eventually. We're in Massage Envy, we're in Hand and Stone, we're in Anytime Fitness. Um, Most big brands have already come to us and signed contracts, and that, which doesn't mean that the bed is in every location yet, but it is rolling out little by little, and eventually you'll be able to, for probably not much, like a $50 to $100 a month membership fee, go use the bed every week. If
Okay.
you
They would just need to have, like, your LightStim branding on it for it to be considered one of your beds with that technology, right?
One sided, no top, and horizontal, and yeah. Um,
Gotcha.
uh, so
What does the future look like in the competitive realm? Like, is the FDA gonna be able to keep up with all the people doing it wrong, or is
no,
there just such an influx of, like, junk coming into the market that you can't possibly keep
no,
up?
no. So the FDA isn't going to right this wrong because it's a zero risk device, and they are shorthanded in their enforcement department. But the FTC, you're going to see the FTC, um, like, the FTC, uh, uh, find a fitness company, um, not Anytime Fitness, but another company that has fitness in their name. That about 10 years ago, I think something like $14 million for telling people that their stand up tanning booth that had red tubes in it now was red light therapy. um, and and it's actually happening in the space again. And these class action law. Who's going to clean it up is the class action lawsuit firms and the FTC, because the FTC can just levy a fine at whatever they want.
Mhm.
The class action guys got to take them to court, but but um, but then they could get money for all of the duped members that thought they were getting something when they really weren't. And this is not what's happening. Isn't uh, dystypical of what happens in a new industry. Um,
Yeah.
it starts out with some good devices, altruistic thing. Like we decided on building a bed because we thought it would help a lot of people, and finally, now that we've got these franchises that are buying our products, a lot of people can afford the device. It doesn't, but if you've got money, 40 grand, I'm putting one in my house, right? And we sell them to people all the time. Matter of fact, we sold, not counting my franchise division, we sold more beds to people that put them in houses last year than spas and med spas and that sort of thing. Um,
Wow.
so it's, you get a loan on it, and it's like the same payment as a Honda. So, what does your health mean to you?
Yeah.
And yeah, um,
Very true. Yeah, I guess, like, classic example of if it sounds too good to be true with, like, this competitive brands, or if it's like you get what you pay for. It's just a classic example of you get what you pay for,
yeah.
basically.
Um, well, actually, most of the tanning beds that you see on the market that have been retrofitted, most of them are going for well over what the price I just quoted you. They're going for 60 to 120,000, and and
They
they
don't
don't
work.
comply.
Yeah.
They don't comply.
That's
But the other thing I'd like to kind of educate your viewers on is some of the myths and the things that are perpetuated online about LED and red light that that they should know when they see this to like run.
Yeah, yeah, enlighten us.
So for one, green LED. So anybody that's got green LED in a device, just run. Like there's not there's it maybe there's one study, I don't know. I haven't heard of one yet. I mean, we have a department that does nothing but read clinical studies in our part of our education department. But there's no clinical studies to show that green light makes hyperpigmentation go away, and that's what they always advertise it for. It doesn't work for hyperpigmentation any more than amber or red or infrared. All of them will work on the first two people you do, and then not on the next six, and then on one person, and then not on the next 15. Like no rhyme or reason at all. And but uh, but a good esthetician can take your standard red light therapy that's using like red and infrared or amber, red and infrared, like our devices, and with the correct products can reduce hyperpigmentation. But green, no way. Just run. They don't know what they're doing. And most of the companies that are selling product, they're not LED companies, they're marketing companies. They're just importing them from
Mhm.
China. Um, the other thing, when somebody starts touting how much energy their device puts out and how their device puts out more than the other panel puts out or than this other thing puts out, um, that's a red herring. Also, that's taking you off into something that doesn't matter anywhere near as much as other things matter for efficacy, and and to prove that point, if you were, and we've done this, if you were to take the 100 most peer-reviewed and looked to clinical studies in the red light space, and 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 they are over, say, 20 different maladies of the body. One's for pain, one's for getting rid of sores in the mouth of children caused by chemotherapy. Um,
Mhm.
one's for reducing PSA count of prostate. Another one's for reversing blindness caused by diabetes, that sort of thing. If you look at these 100 studies that are successful studies, why do they vary in energy output from a quarter of a joule to 96 joules if energy output is the thing that's so important? It's not. What's way, way more important is penetration. And the
Mhm.
hassle that we went through and all the research and money spent on what to actually figure out what it takes to get good penetration in a device. Um, what else? Do we
Do you find most people see benefit with the device used proactively? Like most people use it proactively, like as just a habitual thing they do daily or frequently throughout the week, or is it more so like acutely when there is a pain or a joint issue or like an injury that they're targeting specifically?
So both works, and there should be different devices. So your pain device, the best wavelengths that you could have are a couple of red wavelengths and a couple of infrared. And particularly, you want to have a 940 infrared because that goes very deep. Um, whereas with um, an aesthetic like wrinkles, like first off, taking that category of for pain that I said, like that, you might not pick that device up until you had an acre pain, and then you might use it intensely. Like I hurt my back while on vacation a week ago, and I had my little like we call it recovery loop pods. They come in either a single pod or two pod, and I had those stuffed in down my pants and my back because it was low back pain, and they run for like 2 hours. So every 20 minutes they shut off, and I just turn it back on again and I turn it back on again, and then just switch them out for another set. And finally got rid of the sciatic nerve pain that I had that I'd never had since I was 17 years old. That pretty much crippled me on my vacation. um, um, and then, then you switch over to something like wrinkles for aesthetics and stuff. And, and you definitely want to have, red, in the variety of somewhere between 630 and 660, 670. You want to have red and preferably any of these devices that I'm talking about, actually, preferably you want to buy devices that have one wavelength, and I'll tell you why. So so if you do a little research, you'll find that science has proven that when you use multiple wavelengths at the same time, simultaneously being emitted, they have a tendency to cancel one another out. Not completely, but to a degree. And depending on what the wavelengths are and how much power it is, varying degrees. And
Mm-hmm.
and so nobody so our company's 25 years old, and it was started in February of 2020. And it's actually 26 years old now, I guess. So nobody, when our inventors put out their first light, and the first light had two wavelengths of red and two wavelengths of infrared. Nobody had a multiple wavelength device. They all had one wavelength. And it's precisely because of this science that says that they cancel one another out to a degree. And and our inventors, I won't say that they were Einstein. I would say that they tripped and face planted into the answer around that. And I defy anybody ever running into it accidentally again. Nobody ever has. Um, and um, and so they accidentally found how to use multiple wavelengths simultaneously and actually get a better result than if you were using one wavelength at a time. And there was one company back there. It was called Baby Quasar. And they made a high quality device. They were a good, strong competitor of ours back in the day. And they're not around anymore. And they were engineers, and they knew about these laws of science, and so they didn't make a multiple emitting simultaneously device. What they made instead was a device that had four wavelengths, basically the same wavelengths we had, but they only went on so they one at a time. So they would do amber for 2 minutes and then shut it off. And then the device would automatically turn on one of the red wavelengths and then turn it off. Then it would turn on the other wavelength. And their devices worked. It took a long time. It took longer than us because we were able to do it all at the same time. But they worked, and it was a good quality product with real science behind it. Well, everybody started seeing that we were starting to get the lion's share of the professionals with our devices, and we're using these multiple wavelengths, and nobody bothers to even Google it to know you shouldn't do it. And everybody started making multiple wavelength devices, which made their devices work worse than when they had one wavelength, which got us even more business. Because now their devices actually work worse, where they could have been a competitor if had they used one wavelength back then. It wouldn't have worked as well because different wavelengths do different things to cells. So if we've got four wavelengths, we're able to do four different things with a cell where they might only be able to do one. But one, you're still getting a good result. We just are going to get that much better of a result with four wavelengths.
Right.
So this is something that nobody out there knows. Like if you're looking at devices and you don't have to buy LightStim, just buy a one wavelength device and try to buy something that actually has FDA clearance, which doesn't really guarantee that it's perfect, because LightStim back in the day did all the studies. And now to get FDA clearance, what most companies will do, they'll just go, we have the same exact engineering as LightStim has, and we will sign a document attesting to the fact under penalty of perjury. And they do that. And they don't have the same technology. They might have the same wavelengths that we're using, but they are subject to science, which is making those wavelengths not work as well as if they had been using one at a time.
And your technology that uses multiple simultaneously, that's the secret sauce that you can't tell us, right?
Yeah. It has. I
Gotcha,
will tell
gotcha.
you, it has all to do with it has all to do with uh, the many different specs that you can um, customize in an LED. And to give you an idea how wide a variety is, if like a 660 wavelength or a 630 wavelength are very popular red wavelengths. I mean, those two wavelengths are used more than anything else, and either together or by themselves. And there's at least 10 different factories around the world, at least, making a 660 wavelength LED. And if you if you surveyed those 10 different companies that make that, they each make it in somewhere between like 2 maybe and 10 different varieties. So one might be a 5 millimeter, one might be a 3 millimeter, one might only come with an angle like this, one might only come with an angle like this. Like many different, one might have a certain irradiance and the next one might have 4 times that irradiance. Um, and and then once you narrow in on what one you're going to actually use, now there's about 50 different specs that you can no, I'm sorry, there's more like about 25 to 30 different specs that you could call out on that when ordering it. But you have to be ordering in the millions. Like you got to be a big
Mhm.
company and order a lot of LEDs to be able to pick and choose like that, and not just take something off the shelf. And then after you do that, and they make, let's say of what you specified, they make 5 million of those LEDs. And they've already figured out into the price that any of them that you don't buy, they're going to sell to somebody else cheaper, basically, and they're going to get their money back and make some money off of this deal for making 5 million of them when you only really needed a million. And
Mhm.
and they take that 5 million devices and they actually divide it up into 26 different categories of irradiance, A through Z, and they call them bins. And the higher the bin, the more irradiance that the light would have, which may be beneficial, maybe not. Just depends what you're doing. Um, and and so um, so that's why I say our inventors tripped and fell into like somebody handing them these LEDs and saying, "Well, these have never been used for anything other than Christmas trees in Uruguay, but try them out." And they try them out, and they're like they work together, no problem, and they get a better result than anybody's ever seen. And
Interesting. Very interesting. And so you said you bought it from those inventors back in 2000, right?
yes, well,
February
oh no, we
2000?
actually bought it in it's 17 spot 2007. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, like, what is next on the horizon for you? I mean, you went from car detailing to custom home manufacturing. Now you're, like, running the world from a light therapy standpoint. What's got you excited about the
I
future?
love cars, and I hated that business. I love building houses, but I'm done doing it for other people. I'm gonna build a house for another house for myself before I build a house for anybody else. And I really like this business, and we're helping a lot of people in multiple ways, both their health and just aesthetics too, like in the beauty industry. And we're finding new uses every day. Uh, and I give you a quick example of this. Have you ever seen anything about NASA and LEDs?
No.
So if you search the internet for NASA and LEDs, NASA in the mid 90s did studies that brought the LED technology up to a whole new level. And the guy that did those studies with NASA was is an ex-Navy SEAL his name is Dr. Harry T. Whalen, Whelan. And he did those studies and really furthered the LED technology. And then he goes on to become the world authority on anything LED in medical. So he's done more than 50 clinical studies with LED on different maladies of the body. And and he we found him, he found us about 12 years ago, something like that. And and we don't even have him on our website. Like other people go, we have the same technology that Harry Whalen developed with NASA. They don't have anything. They're like that. Um, but but basically, if he doesn't make it in his lab for his clinical studies, we make it for him. So we made him lights for reversing blindness caused by diabetes, reversing macular degeneration, healing the chest after open heart surgery, elephantitis, um, reduction of inflammation of the brain caused by severe head trauma, and then activating a chemical. So a special light that activates a chemical that searches out and kills cancer cells in brain tumors. So we have quite a breadth of knowledge way outside this current trend of beauty and wellness, basically, from working with Dr. Wayland. And uh, I mean, you're just gonna see more and more stuff come out. We have tons of new products coming out over the next year, and which I can't tell you about, unfortunately, but my marketing department would kill me. But
But it's safe to say that LightStim's got a bright future, all pun fully intended.
absolutely.
Nice.
Big warning for your viewers. Like, do not do not follow the direction of people who are experts online and use LED to try and handle your what did I just say a little while ago about that reversing blindness, but macular degeneration. Do not try and
Okay.
handle macular degeneration in your home by yourself. These guys that are purporting that online, they don't know anything about LED at all. Those studies, we made devices for those studies, as did a couple of other manufacturers that no longer exist. But but those were extremely precision protocols, and 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 also that used a chemical a drop that you put in your eye that the light did something with. Like, this is not something that you should be messing with in your home, of shining a light in your eyes. Like, there's only a small chance you would hurt yourself, but there's almost zero chance that you're going to improve your vision. Like these guys are
Gotcha.
really irresponsible by having a small amount of knowledge and suggesting to large audiences that they should be trying to do this at home.
Gotcha. Well, I have definitely learned a ton about light therapy, red light therapy specifically. So I'm excited to continue this quest and learn more, because this is definitely a popular trend right now in my space. And I feel like, I go to these conferences and like every other booth seems to be a light therapy booth of some type. And I've always been pretty skeptical, and you've definitely pulled the curtain back on what is and is not efficacious. So much obliged to you there. Where do people go to learn more, dive deeper into your world, and check out LightStim?
Lightstim.com, lightstim.com. We have a discount code. I think it's Savage, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, uh,
Nice.
and to take advantage of. And I'm going to have Erica contact you. I want to send you a LightStim for wrinkles for your wife, and our recovery loop pods for pain and for yourself.
Well, shoot, I'll definitely. Always got some kind of busts or bruises or something from training, so I'll certainly put it to the test for sure.
Great. Great.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time, Steve. You're a wealth of knowledge. Keep fighting the good fight. I know it's like it's very disheartening when you see people coming in trying to like just undermine all the work that you've had to do from a legality standpoint, especially in this day and age. And because I get that too within the food industry, and it's like it's exhausting. It's exhausting to try and do the right thing and play by the rules and do the right thing by your customers. And so many competitors come in and just bypass all that. Oftentimes it's short lived, but like you don't know that in the moment,
Yeah.
and it's just frustrating. I applaud you for fighting the good fight and doing it as it's supposed to
Well,
be done, for
thank
sure.
you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you. I hope I didn't talk your ear off too much.
No, no, not at all. It's very, very interesting, very insightful for sure. So, Steve, appreciate you, man. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll be in touch
All
for
right. You
sure.
too, Robert. Thank you. Oh, hi.
Take care.